as you're all sitting in your comfy armchairs wearing your pajamas or whatever. It's Wednesday, the 23rd. This is a meeting of the Cabinet, a formal meeting. It is open to the public and the press. I don't know if they're going to attend. Are there any apologies for absence?
Councillors Buttery and Councillor Lees.
Okay.
Potentially Councillor Zada, if he doesn't make an appearance.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Judy. Any changes in representation of the opposition group?
Not been informed of any, Leader.
Okay. Any declarations of interest under the Members' Code of Conduct? No. Okay. Can we confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of July? That sounds ages ago, doesn't it? As a correct record.
Agreed.
Well done. Well done, Patrick. Sitting there in the warm. Huh. Taking a notice of you tonight. Okay, agenda item 5, which is the capital programme monitoring. This is a report with the Chief Exec and the Director of Finance. It involves all the workings around the council. An exciting time. We've got light railway, Gornwood Cram on there, Maitland Road Children's Homes, very light railway. Is there anyone that wants to ask any questions on it? I can't see any hands, so I hope somebody's monitoring that.
I've got my hand
Leader,
up.
sorry, yeah, there's quite a few hands up. Councillors Kershid Ahmed and Sue Ridney.
Okay, so we have Kershid first then.
Thank you, David. Yes, I agree with you. So a number of really good news and regarding the regeneration in Dudley. Well done to everyone that's been working hard trying to achieve these positive improvements for the borough. Just 2-3 points that I just need clarification and guidance on. First of all, if I can ask you to have a look at page 11, right at the bottom, it's low carbon place strategy. It's again brilliant that there was an award of 2.5 million, the European Regional Development Fund.
Yeah.
But then the next paragraph concerns me a little bit. It says the installation of the domestic heating system has been seized because that's what the money was for. Yes. And now we're talking to the ministry, and I'm just wondering what we're talking to them about. Bearing in mind, recently we passed the motion for climate emergency, and the fact that if that money is going to be spent elsewhere instead of improving the reducing of the carbon emissions in the old buildings such as the council house, if that money disappears, then we're not going to be we're going to have buildings that are not going to be friendly environmentally, and I think that raises a concern. I would have thought that if there was going to be any consultation or discussions with the Ministry of Homes, then those should be on having extension if there is a time limit within which we've got to spend that money because of COVID-19, is to make sure that we're allowed to keep that money and use it as soon as we can in order to improve the heating systems in our old buildings. That's in respect to that. Do you want me to carry on? There's a couple of other points.
Yes, sure, please.
Okay. The other one is on page 14, Dudley Interchange. It's great that we've got, again, the funding's all secured in respect to that. But just I'm just sort of concerned about the CPO and the process and negotiations that's been carrying on. Looking at the second paragraph of that report under the Dudley Interchange, it says negotiations regarding third-party land acquisition is ongoing in advance of the formal compulsory purchase order. Now, my understanding is that these negotiations have been going on for many years. Okay, I accept the fact that funding is probably secured now, But how long will this negotiation carry on? Because I have been told, or I'm sure that all of us have been told, that the CPO process takes about 2-3 years. If it does take another 2-3 years, then it's going to delay the project. So I'm just wondering how long we're going to carry on with those negotiations. When do we stop the negotiations if we can't reach them and start the formal CPO process? And that needs to be done fairly quickly. And you know, regular feedback on that would be useful, so make sure that everything is going smoothly. Otherwise, there'll be long delays later on. One more point, please. That's in respect of same page 14, the Lego centres. Again, great news, the way that the Lego centre is progressing and the steelworks have come on. Brilliant news there. Well done to everyone. Just over the page, on page 15, it says the design work associated with both Halesowen and Crystal Layer Centres have been completed. We are now ready for the construction phase. I wasn't aware of what designs are. I haven't had an update. Being a shadow cabinet member, I thought I would have got some sort of a heads up of what's going on. Is there any intention of sharing that with the oppositions, or do you just want to deal with it yourselves? I'll be, it'd be nice to have your guidance on that, David.
Yeah, fine. Sue, that you wanted to come in with something as well?
Yes, thank you. Just the Maitland Road. Why? I'm very pleased to see that we are repairing it following the Ofsted inspection. Again, as I spoke at the last cabinet meeting and at council, the money is coming from unused funding for disabilities capital, special needs disabilities capital fund grants and 14 to 19 diplomas. I'd just like to know how much is left in those funds, as this is the second cabinet where we've used funding from that for something else. I'd just like to know how much is left in that funding, please. Obviously I don't expect people to tell me tonight, but I would be keen to find out how much is left in those funds, please.
Certainly, Sue. That is a thing that I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, obviously. So I'll get one of the officers to let you know exactly how much is involved in that one.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else up with their hand up? I see Ian's got your hand up. Ian, do you want to come in? You'll have to unmute, Ian.
I do apologise. I was concentrating on the camera. I'd like to speak, answer Kershid's 2 questions concerning the CPO. Officers have been involved on a daily basis with the owners of properties that we need to CPO, and you can only do your best while you're dealing with people in good faith. When things happen, as have happened recently, good faith just does not occur, and it got very complicated. Our officers have been doing the best they can under the circumstances, but we are dealing with a very fluid situation. That's the best thing I can offer you at the moment. As for the plans on the leisure centre, by all means, we'll get a briefing sorted out for you, and come and share a briefing with the chief officer, and we'll explain everything we've got down as yet.
So can I come back to you through you, David, please?
Yes, certainly.
Now I accept that, in good faith, we do the best we can and do the negotiations, but, obviously that's what the process is for, CPO process. I just want to know is that, have we come down to the end of our negotiations? If so, when can we start the formal CPO process? Because if that's where we need to go, we need to be start to do that now, especially as the funding is available. What we don't want is any delays in making sure that our regeneration program goes to as scheduled already. But if we don't start the process now, it's just going to delay everything.
Yes, you're right, Kershid. But we haven't come to the end of the proceedings yet. We will carry on talking right up until the wire. It's a game of hardball, I think, and we intend on carrying through with it. We just have to see who gives up first. and it won't be it won't be us. We shall be there all the time.
Yeah.
Your other question, Kershid, was about the going back to page 4, wasn't it? The
Page 11, I think, the low carbon.
The low carbon, yes, that's right. Obviously, it's the COVID that has caused us some problems on that.
Sure.
People aren't allowing engineers going into the house. I've had 2 or 3 people ring me up about that. They're shielding and don't want people in their houses at all. And we have respected that. We've decided that we can't do anything else other than that. And to be fair, some of the installers are not keen to enter the houses of certain houses, so that is stalling us. We shall carry on with that. We are speaking to the central government about how it will carry on, because we're not the only council in that situation. There's 1 or 2 are struggling, probably more than 1 or 2, but we will get there. It's just a question of hanging on a little bit, Kershid.
Sure. David, in respect of housing, I accept that. That's brilliant. But what about the corporate buildings that we own? Are we satisfied that we've been able to do all that needs to be done in all of our buildings where possible?
Yes, that of course is a different matter there, but we have the problem with getting the parts in that we might need for these replacements, because they're not all easy on the shelf sort of things. We have to order them and get them made sometimes, but we are carrying on with that. We're doing more on the corporate buildings than we are doing on the private house, the housing side of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the leader's
Anybody
got
else on
his,
that at all?
the leader has his hand raised.
Oh, go on then, Pat. Off you go.
Cheers, David. Yeah, just on a couple of points. I think Paul Davis could probably answer as to where we are with the first question that Kersh had asked. And the other just regards the interchange. It's the #1 project for travel for West Midlands, so that funding will come through. It's top of their list, so there'll be no other projects funded through their route anywhere in the West Midlands apart from that one first. That has to happen first, so it's top of their priority, so that will happen, and we will deliver, just like we have on Cavendish House, just like we have on Very Light Rail. So we will deliver on that. As regards compulsory purchase powers, these are always complicated and delicate, and nobody moves until the last moment. But rest assured, we're not going to wait 2 or 3 years for it to reach a conclusion. That bus station needs to be in place for when we get the metro, and the metro's progressing at great pace. And the interchange needs to be there by the time that metro comes to Dudley. And of course, by the time we've got the Portersfield development well and truly on its way.
Thank you.
I think somebody else put their hand up, but I couldn't see who it was. It just flashed in front of me.
It was Councillor Baton. I don't know whether she's put her hand down now.
Kathy, do you want to say anything?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Leader covered it.
Yeah, well, that's what he's there for. We accept him for that, even in his shorts. Okay, so we'll all note that, folks, and that's moving on at a nice pace. So we'll move to agenda item 6, which is the General Fund Review Monitoring 2020 and 21. Steve, you're going to do this one, aren't you?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, this is the General Fund Review Monitoring for 2021. This report gives an updated financial forecast for the year 2020-21. It's set against a background, obviously, of COVID-19. Now, our forecast is a best estimate in the light of uncertainty about the path of the virus, the nature and duration of public health measures, and the severity of economic impacts. Taking into account the COVID-19 grant we expect to receive, the in-year impacts on services and other underlying financial pressures, we still hope to account for a surplus of around £1 million in the current year. However, this is only because we're allowed to spread the impact of council tax and business rate losses, which we expect to be almost £10 million, to be accounted for in the next 3 years. Now, we recognise that some financial impacts will carry on beyond this year, and the level of our government grant in future years is uncertain. We will know more after the comprehensive spending review later this autumn. Our historic, as we always say, low tax, low spend and low reserves make these challenges all the greater. This is highlighted by our external auditors in their adverse judgment of our financial sustainability. We know that if we do not receive more ongoing financial support, difficult decisions will be needed. So we will carry on calling for that support. We will report to Cabinet again in October and December. So I move the report's recommendations. Thank you.
Anyone got any questions for Steve on that?
With Councillor Lowe.
Hello, Pete. Nice to see you.
Hi, David. Nice to see you as well. Very nice to see our leader's very colourful shirt whilst he's drinking a pina colada or whatever he's drinking over there as well. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments, really. I don't intend to go into any great detail at this point, because I think, as Steve has outlined, there's an awful lot of assumptions and, understandably, an awful lot of information that can't be added at this moment because it's an ever-changing situation, and we fully accept that, as no doubt you would want to. I would make my one-party political point, as you would expect me to, with regard to the low tax, low spend, and whilst we certainly low spend, if we'd use the opportunities afforded to us rather than making party political points in the past, then we wouldn't be as much of a low tax authority as we were. But I know you had your reasons at that given time when the ballot box came before the people of Dudley. But what I did want to make the point is, what is always important, that we don't just see this report in isolation. I think Steve has started to outline we actually have to have a look at the whole of the medium-term financial strategy, have a look at it over a 3-year period, and of course the ability to be able to pay back over the 3 years actually gives us a picture in this year that isn't necessarily the picture when you look at the medium-term financial strategy. Steve alluded to the auditor's report and the risk in 2021-22 of actually being able to meet our statutory duty in setting the council tax. So we certainly are aware and will be obviously keeping a very close eye on the council's recommendations for the budget. That being said, I think it's imperative, and I will make this point at this point, that we ensure appropriate scrutiny when we get to October onwards, and we certainly don't look towards a delay in getting in to that scrutiny process. So we look forward to the Cabinet report, the budget report on the 29th of October, so we can get that into scrutiny as soon as possible in November, so that actually we can look towards what the council's proposals are and ensure that we don't, as well as have a difficult financial position, actually allow ourselves to have the allegation of not having appropriate scrutiny through that process as well. So the points being made by Steve, will continue to monitor. We look forward to the November round of scrutiny following the 29th of October medium-term financial strategy and the outturn budgetary report. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Pete. Anybody else at all? Question for Steve?
No, we have nobody else.
Okay, thank you, Manjit. Steve?
Yeah, if I could just come back to Pete. First of all, Pete, my sympathies with you today. I believe that you had a funeral of your very good friend, so thoughts are with you over that one. And I don't know what the experience was like of actually going to the church with so few people there, but I heard you did okay. I think the issue that we've got is that we're £10 million short of our budget at this point, and so the government have been good enough to actually say that we can spread that 10 million over the next 3 years. It does lean to us putting a positive budget in this year, but that's not really the positives about it, because the reality is we are short. So yeah, Pete, we will keep you all informed of what's going on over the next in the October and December cabinets. Okay, thank you very much.
Pete, I think you want to come back in there, don't you, mate? You've got your hand up again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to come in very briefly. Firstly, to thank Steve for those very kind comments with regard to the recent bereavement. I think it's times like this where you realise that even your political opponents can be very good people to us. So I'd just like to pass my thanks to that, and also to Gornal Crematorium. The staff there were exceptional, and I think it is quite often don't go applauded, but the work that they did there was nothing short of exceptional. With regard to the budget in October, and I hear the potential date on the 3rd of December, I do think it is absolutely essential that we don't delay going into scrutiny in November of what the administration's proposals are. I fully accept that they may come back again in December with further amendments, but what we cannot allow ourselves to do is to stall and not get into the scrutiny process in November, because that would simply not be fair to the people of Dudley. Other than that, thank you very much indeed, Steve.
Yeah, if I can just come back on that, please, Chair. Yes. I think what we've got to do is we just need to see what happens in the comprehensive spending review in the autumn before we really come back. I mean, most of the things there are available for you to scrutinise, but in terms of that spending review, that will just detail us on how much we have to spend and the actual final figures. But you know, most of the stuff you will be able to scrutinise fairly early on.
Steve, just to be clear, what I want to see in November and what we believe the scrutiny committee should see is, irrespective of what the revenue comes back later on in the year, is what your proposals would be. That is what this council has done every year since 2012 onwards. We'd expect nothing different this year. Of course, we fully accept that you may come back and further amend that in December, but simply not going into scrutiny and trying to withhold what those options could be would simply not be acceptable to us.
Well, I think with that, Pete, what we have to do is be very prudent, and we can't be spending money that we haven't got, and so we need to make sure that that money is available to us first before we can outline all our plans. But whatever we've got in scrutiny, whatever is there, I'm happy for you to scrutinise. Not a problem at all, and we'll try and get what we can to you early.
Good. That's a good way to finish that one, folks. Anyone else making any questions or remarks on this?
We've got nobody else indicating.
Okay, so we move then to agenda item 7, which is Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Annual Review Letter. And that is a matter for the Chief Exec. Want to come in there, Kevin, at all?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members will know that every year all councils receive an annual letter from the Ombudsman outlining our performance. in a variety of respects by reason of the number of complaints that are received and those upheld. Members will see at page 32 the sort of pie charts there that of the number of complaints that actually got as far as the Ombudsman, 11 were upheld. That represents 65% of those that got as far as the Ombudsman. And this compares favourably to 67% of other authorities of a similar magnitude to ourselves. 100% of cases that satisfied the Ombudsman, that we were able to implement the recommendations quickly. And again, you will see at the bottom of that page that in 9% of cases that actually ended up with upheld complaints, we'd, as a council, had responded positively before they reached the Ombudsman. The narrative of the letters at pages 29 and 30, you will see that there was one issue that was upheld regarding an education, health and care plan that required the authority to pay a £2,300 payment in terms of compensation. That was promptly dealt with, and you will see that there's a difference of opinion, as it were, between the Ombudsman and the council, having taken expert legal advice from a leading barrister with regard to one outstanding issue. I think perhaps if Matt Boucher is in the meeting, he can probably just give a bit more detail as far as that's concerned. But generally speaking, a positive outcome as far as the Ombudsman's letter is concerned generally, and in my experience, the number of complaints generated in Dudley is rather less than in many comparable organisations throughout the country, and certainly our track record of dealing with them proactively has led to the fact that notwithstanding the size of the administrative area, with over 320,000 population, only 11 complaints have been upheld, which augurs well for the future. If with your leave, Chair, if Matt Boucher's on the call, I'm sure he can give some further detail regarding those 3 paragraphs relating to a disputed methodology for working around school transport.
Perhaps you'd like to enlighten us.
Thank you, Chair. Can I get a thumbs up if the audio is working all right, firstly?
Yep.
Yes, brilliant, Matt.
That's good. Stops me talking for half an hour pointlessly. This is an issue that both sides of the political floor are well versed with in relation to third-party top-ups. We brought a formal paper to Cabinet this time last year. We saw a consensus view from both sides of the floor. Effectively, the Ombudsman does not agree with the approach we take locally. Our legal advice that we've now taken from 2 separate barristers on 2 separate occasions confirms the same thing, which is our position is robust. We have set out how we've complied with 95% of the Ombudsman's requirements, and indeed we will be piloting another approach to residential and nursing care payments going forwards. However, there remains a point of contention between ourselves and the Ombudsman about the administration of those payments. And my recommendation, and I know that Councillor Barlow would also like to speak on this topic, is that we hold our position. It's well informed. We've set out a detailed response to the Ombudsman. Not all of the points that we've made have been responded to, and I believe the recommendations that we're making remain sound and robust.
Thank you, Matt. Nick, would you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Really to echo what Matt has just said. This has been brought to Cabinet on several occasions, and indeed it was presented at a recent full council. We've taken the necessary advice, and I believe that we should continue to stick to our guns with this. I think the LGO are being a bit petty over this, and I fully support Matt and our officer's decision to move this forward.
Thank you, Nick. Are there any questions on this at all?
Judy. Councillor Foster.
Thank
Judy,
you.
would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. A couple of questions on this and this particular issue that you've highlighted on page 30. First of all, this letter was written back in July. 2 months later, have you heard from the Ombudsman? Has he or she made contact with you, as he or she said they would in due course. And oh, it's a he, sorry, Michael King. And secondly, where does this take us if the Ombudsman continues to disagree with our position? Could the council be taken to court? I'm assuming that the Ombudsman can take their own legal advice as well. Could this end up in the courts?
Thank you, Judy. Would Kevin like to answer that, or Matt?
Matt's got his
I think Matt's got the operational knowledge. That's probably useful for Matt to come back, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Yes, there's been regular correspondence with the Ombudsman in the intervening period. We have a detailed response that we will be issuing imminently, and if Councillor Barlow is happy, I see no reasons why that can't be shared with both sides.
Happy for that.
In terms of remedy, the Ombudsman is proposing to publish a finding against the council in local media. At this juncture, there has been no threat of legal action against the council. It is within the powers that the Ombudsman has to pursue that route if it wishes to do so. What I would note is, whilst we have been fully transparent in sharing the legal advice and opinion that we've received, we have not, despite requests, received the legal position of the Ombudsman. Thank you.
Does that help you, Judy, at all?
Yes, it does. I mean, just on the media. Sorry, just on the media issue. Obviously, it's already out there, isn't it? And it's out there now in this report.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, thank you.
We have Mohammed Farouk has raised his hand.
Okay, Mohammed, there you are, our legal man. Get in there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was going to say what Matt Boucher has just beaten me to, which was that we've been completely transparent with the Ombudsman from day one. We've had the advice from Council and we've conveyed that advice. In return, we asked them for their advice because they were insisting that their legal interpretation was correct. And when we asked them for the advice, they refused to give us that advice and said that their letters were sufficient, which we don't think they are. And as we've just agreed, we are strongly of the view that we have a strong case, and we will continue to fight that.
We will continue to defend it, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, anything else on that one? Shall we just note the contents then and move on to, is it item 8? The next one is Dudley Local Development Scheme 2020 and Dudley Local Plan Update, which again has come in from Helen Martin. I don't know if she's there, or does Ian want to speak on this one first? Anybody?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair. Paul Manford is here as well, and so, but I'll happily take this item unless you want to, Paul.
No, I'm happy to cover this one.
Okay. Yep, fire away. Thank you.
So the local development scheme provides a summary of the planning policy documents which Dudley Council is currently progressing, and their timetable included expected date of adoption. The main points from the local development scheme update report are that the LDF now covers the period 2020 to 24. The updated timetable of the Black Country Plan should be noted, with adoption now anticipated in 2024, and the plan will now cover the period up to 2039. As a result of the changes to the Black Country Plan timetable, the Briley Hill Area Action Plan review timetable has also been altered, as this needs to run behind the Black Country Plan. Therefore, adoption of the Briley Hill AAP is now anticipated to be late in 2024. A new supplementary planning document has also been identified for LIE to provide more detailed development proposals for sustainable housing-led regeneration around LIE using garden city principles. A revision to the community infrastructure levy has also been taken off the local development scheme while we await greater certainty from central government around future community infrastructure levy and infrastructure funding. And finally, the health and wellbeing supplementary planning document has also been put on hold until there's more detailed policy within the Black Country Plan to form the basis for the SPD. So the report is seeking the recommendation to approve the revisions to the local development scheme, and that following adoption, Cabinet authorises the Director of Regeneration and Enterprise to make any minor amendments as necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Ian, do you want to say anything on that?
No, I think Paul has covered it excellently. There's no problem whatsoever there. It's an ongoing process that's been going on for years, with various plans that are updated regular. I'm okay with that.
Okay, any questions on that? Judy, you've got your hand up, I think.
I have indeed, Chair. Thank you very much. My question is on 39. Reference to under types of planning documents included. It makes reference in the third point down to neighbourhood plans. It says there are none currently in Dudley, and then if you look across to figure 1 development plan structure, there on the right it says potential. So are there any plans for these?
Paul, can you do that?
Yeah, I mean, neighbourhood plans are not something that the local authority leads on. They're something that obviously neighbourhoods would bring forward, and at the minute there's been no interest from local communities in terms of bringing forward a neighbourhood plan.
Does the council have a role in perhaps stimulating some interest in its own interests, for example? Does it benefit the council for them to exist, and does the council have a role in stimulating interest in the community for them?
Through you, Chair, if I can respond on that, the council does not per se have a role in stimulating the interest, but it does have a role in supporting communities should they wish to bring forward neighbourhood plans. But as Paul's pointed out, the legislation says they have to be basically promoted by the local community, and they're there to promote, generally speaking, more development than is proposed in the local plans than less. So they're not there to bring in extra restrictions. They're there to support local growth that the community wishes to see happen. So if there are local communities that are interested, yes, we absolutely have a role in supporting them. And we've had historically, not recently, a couple of interests from individuals, but they've not progressed to anything meaningful in the past. Yes. But if anybody is interested, by all means, please point them in our direction, and we can have a conversation.
It's probably not something that's on people's radar, I have to say. I don't think there are many people that are aware that they can do this. So, okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Judy. Anyone else on that one at all?
No, we had nobody further indicating.
Okay, so we'll note the contents of that report, and we'll move on to agenda item number 9, community infrastructure levy. That's the SIL funding approval 2020 and revised SIL instalments policy to reflect a COVID-19. That's your pages 45 to 53. Who's going to do that one? You, Paul?
Yeah, happy to do that, Chair. Yeah, so this report is seeking cabinet approval for the partial spend of SIL receipts. So the local authority received 3 bids for funding through the Regulation 123 list, of which 2 are currently recommended for approval. So there's £60,000 for public realm improvements to Shell Corner, which was submitted by the Shell Corner Partnership. And just over 8,000 for Black Country Radio to pay for student equipment for the new digital studio and station. The report also seeks approval for the remaining SIL monies and funding received to be incorporated into the forthcoming infrastructure statement. So you'll see within the report at point 17 that there's currently just over 52,000 that we're seeking approval to roll into the forthcoming infrastructure statement. We're also, in light of COVID-19 and the expected economic impact, we're looking to revise the SIL charging schedule, which was introduced in October 2015, and this is in line with expectations from central government and guidance, where councils are encouraged to amend their existing SIL instalment policies to temporarily relax the payment deadlines. So what we're seeking approval for is to revise the existing policy by adding an extension of 6 months to each of the payment deadlines. The benefit of this will that it will help all scales of development and types of developers across the borough. And in terms of the overall SIL receipts, will have no effect on that at all. So it's recommended that Cabinet approves the 2 projects and also to agree to the temporary relaxation of the SIL payment deadlines.
Thank you. Any questions on that at all?
Councillor Shakespeare and Councillor Ridney.
Councillor Shakespeare, perhaps you'd like to come in.
Yeah, hello. It's just a comment really on the Shell Corner public realm improvements, and I'd just like to say that obviously that's my old patch, and I was a member of Shell Corner Partnership previously, and obviously I am aware of what is trying to be achieved there, and I would fully support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue, would you like to come in?
Yes, please. Just a request for some information, please. On the, I notice it on page 49. An allocation has been made to the Canal and River Trust. Could I just have some information as to what that was allocated for? This is bearing in mind our new status in Cosley, with the Cosley Tunnel now being a UNESCO site. So we are. I'd just like to know what those funds were allocated for, please. If someone could, I'm quite happy to accept a written information on that.
That's fine, Sue. Then you'll certainly get that. Paul, you can sort that out, I'm sure.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
I think it was actually for bridge repairs at on one of the canals close to Netherton Reservoir, but I'll just get that confirmed.
I'd got that in the back of my mind, but if you can just confirm that for me, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that one?
No further speakers.
Okay, we can formally note the contents of that report, and on the other reports that I failed to say that on, we'll formally note all of those, and we'll carry on with agenda item 10, which is the report of the Director of Regeneration and Enterprise. Who's going to do that? Paul, is you again?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Councillor Vickers. So it's really just to seek approval to the revision of the statement of community involvement, and this really comes around as a result of directions from government that local planning authorities need to revise the statement of community interest to reflect how they actively engage with stakeholders on planning documents during times of nationally or locally prescribed periods of social distances, such as the current case with the COVID-19 pandemic. So what the statement, the revised statement of community interest provides details on is that during these social distancing times, effectively it means that the local authority does not require planning documents to be made available within reception areas and at libraries. Highlights that public meetings, including committee meetings, public local inquiries, as well as exhibitions and displays, can be undertaken through virtual means, and also that site visits on planning applications by case officers will not be a requirement, especially during full lockdown phase. Just to note on that, we've maintained a full service during lockdown. Once adopted, the statement of community interest will provide established policy, protocol and guidance for Dudley Council in the engagement with the community in the delivery of the planning service. So the recommendation is that Cabinet approves the adoption of the revised statement of community interest. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on that? Judy, you're coming in again?
Again, Chair. Yeah, the page 82, neighbourhood planning. There's something there that sort of possibly contradicts what the response I got before about neighbourhood plans, because it does actually say quite clearly there we are encouraging local communities to take an active role in planning for their neighbourhoods through the preparation of neighbourhood plans. So is this an aspiration and that's a new section that's going to be going out, or is it that we're doing that already?
We already do that, Judy. It's a question of whether they pick it up and carry it forward.
Yeah, so what does that, thank you. So what does that, I'm talking to the planning officers now, Paul and Helen, what does that encouragement look like?
I mean, I think we, through you, Chair, again, we would actively work with any communities, as Helen said, to work with them. I think to date there has been sort of limited engagement from communities or interest from communities, and that may well be a two-way thing. And I think, as Helen pointed out previously, if there's any areas where you wish us to seek to engage with communities on any interest in bringing that forward, then we will willfully do that.
I think an example might be, and this might help other members, is that there's an opportunity here, for example, where there's a problematic building or void, that perhaps members of the community can prepare a plan for an alternative use for that particular site where the void is, or where perhaps there's a problem like derelict garages, and that's been a particular situation, for example, that Sue Ridney's encountered in her ward. So do you see that type of issue being having potential with these neighbourhood plans? Do you see that as an opportunity, something around which a neighbourhood plan could be developed?
Do you want me to come?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say just briefly, and Helen can come in, but I think, as we said previously, that the neighbourhood plan, it is a wider piece of work, and it's something that would need to work in parallel with the existing Black Country plan and Dudley plan. So it's not really for the purpose of addressing specific sites. I don't know whether Helen wants to come in there.
Just a couple of general points, really, that if local communities have a particular interest, whether it's a void building or an area they think can be better used, then I would suggest in the first instance, if they get in touch with us, we can look at what potential routes there are in resolving that situation. So a neighbourhood plan generally is subject to not only wide consultation, but also a forum which requires people to vote on it.
Yeah,
it's not quick, and it's not a cheap process, and it may well be in areas where it's more of a single issue point that we might be able to work with the communities on what's the best route to bring something forward. So by all means, if there's a period of change or areas of change, it may be a neighbourhood plan, or there might be a quicker and more efficient route to a solution on that if we know what the problem is. So first point of call, ask the community to get in touch with us or via their local councillor.
Yeah, I will. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Certainly think via their local councillor is the way that they would normally approach us.
I asked the question. I asked the question, Chair, because there are a number of problematic sites in my own ward, and I wondered whether or not this is an opportunity to organise people in a way where they can be influenced, because they're long-standing issues and other means have failed in terms of progressing the issues.
You okay?
Thank you.
Are there any more hands up there, Manjit?
Councillor Baton.
Go on, Kathy.
Councillor Baton
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's a word, well, a bit of caution really on page 87, which is the Your Place, Your Plan document, so the local development orders. That's obviously referring to works that can be carried out without the requirement of planning permission. Now, I'd be interested to know, and I don't expect the answer tonight, but I would be interested to know, other than the permitted residential developments, what other kinds of changes of use can happen without planning permission. But I do want to issue a word of caution around the permitted residential developments. Being a town centre councillor, we now have quite a number of permitted residential developments. And I have to say that we are at risk of creating the ghettos of the future in unregulated, unplanned and developments where we have large numbers of people in close proximity with very little, no standards that are being met. And I worry about this for the future. So it's a caution around that, but I would like a list of the other types of works and the buildings that can be changed of use.
Certainly, I don't think there's a problem with that, and I'm sure Paul will manage that for you, Kathy. I mean, is it just a sort of a large building being turned into multiple occupancy or something like that?
The permitted residential developments that we're seeing in the town centre are indeed that they are offices which are turned into residential, and clearly when you have large numbers of people living in small areas that are not built to any regulation or standard with no additional infrastructure going in. I think going back about 6 months, we'd had about an additional 300 living units in the town centre with no additional infrastructure. That is a recipe for disaster.
I tend to agree with you, Kathy, but our officers will keep an eye on that and they'll bring it back. Unfortunately, this is national policy, so we have to follow national policy. Any other questions at all?
We've got the leader that wants to come in, but Councillor Armid raised his hand a few times. I don't know whether he wanted to come in.
Certainly we'll have Councillor Armid, would you like to come in?
Sorry, I think Kathy's raised the issues that I just wanted to say that the planning documents are complex documents and they're not really clear. So what she's asking for is quite useful for maybe all of the members, is to give examples of what permitted development is, not just in the town centre but elsewhere. Is it wall extensions on the side, back, rear, what? And I think if those examples are given, and that, that'll be useful for members to understand as well.
It's a good idea. I think we had something in the past about that. Certainly I've shown some interest in the planning, so that might be something that I've received without the others, but I doubt it very much. We can do that for you, can't we, Paul? We get that done?
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah. Patrick, you want to come in?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I agree with the sentiments said by Councillor Baton. We've got a thunderstorm here at the moment, which is quite unbelievable, which is that loud noise. Anyway, Kath's absolutely right. While we regenerate Dudley Town Centre, we want quality residential apartments, houses, call it what you will, dwellings. What we don't want is to set our stall out quite low. So what she's asking for, I think, is very, very reasonable. I want quality developments in Dudley Town Centre. It's only having that quality development with people living there with that disposable income that will attract new investment, and that investment will bring in better wine bars, cafes, restaurants, which in effect it'll just continue to feed it. So, she's absolutely right. And if our planners and region guys can provide that information to all members, particularly on the two front benches, then that would be ideal.
Yeah, I think that's the way forward, certainly. Bit of work there for you, Paul. So we'll note the contents of that report and move on to item 11, Towns Fund, proposal for Dudley Town Centre and the Driverless Vehicle Consortium. So is that you again, Paul?
No, this one's me. Thank you, Chair.
Go on, Helen.
Okay, thank you. So the report in front of members is to update you on the town centre bid for the government's Towns Fund initiative and the Driverless Vehicle Consortium activity that's taken place since January of this year, when Cabinet last received a report. So since that time, quite significant progress has been made in a number of key areas of activity. So the Town Deal Board was established in January of this year. It's continued to meet monthly since, even during lockdown. And the board, which is chaired by Andrew Lovett, includes representation from a number of organisations and partners, including, amongst others, the Combined Authority, the Member of Parliament, some local businesses and investors, the college, health representatives, faith representatives, and the local enterprise partnership. The government has issued further detailed guidance on the Towns Fund, and this was published in June of this year. And as you might expect, plans, when they're submitted, are now expected to be viewed through a COVID lens, and therefore to provide a degree of flexibility and long-term sustainability in the proposals. All Towns Fund areas have been offered the opportunity to accept £1 million, what they're referring to as the Accelerator Fund, to kickstart the regeneration activity that's going to be set out in our town investment plan. This fund is in addition to the main bid pot, which is of up to £25 million, and the £1 million must be spent by March of 2021. Plans are being developed to spend this on public realm measures, which will link the site to the high street and the wider town centre. In terms of the development of the town investment plan, the board has agreed on a bid based not just around the wider regeneration of the town centre of what has happened and what is happening, but on the provision of a higher educational facility located on the Castle Hill area. And this will provide a facility that's based around skills provision as the missing piece of the regeneration jigsaw in Dudley town centre. And it's proposed that this higher educational offer will be largely based around the skill area of health. The work is progressing in the Towns Fund bid, and the development of a much needed HEI, Higher Education Institute for the town, has established that the most appropriate location for this facility would be next to the other University Park developments on the site of the former Hippodrome. This site is near other key developments such as the Black Country and Marches Institute of Technology, the Very Light Rail National Innovation Centre, and could in turn create with these facilities an educational cluster of like-minded projects. If approved by Cabinet, discussions would need to commence with the college and the HIE partner around the sale of the Hippodrome site, and of course any further land acquisitions required to accommodate the final proposals. You will recall that this site was proposed for the Driverless Vehicle Consortium project, and this site and this proposal remains viable, and it is currently planned to have operational routes to complement the developments I've just listed. There is an agreement with Warwick Manufacturing Group to provide some space in the Very Light Rail Innovation Centre, which would allow for the pilot routes to begin to operate with a limited number of vehicles. The board has agreed at recent meetings to submit the bid for the Towns Fund in the third and the final wave, which is in January 2021. But it is a many-stage process, and after the submission, we will get feedback and we will be able to amend our bid before it is finally considered and progresses. So it's recommended that Cabinet notes the contents report and the proposal of the board that we develop the bid largely around this higher educational offer on Castle Hill, and to approve the progression of any related land and property negotiations that this requires. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I can see that Kershid's got his hand up. I can see one or two hands. I can see Kershid's. Would you like to come in?
Thank you, David. I think we all supported the proposal, and I hear what Helen is saying about considerable progress being made. I think that's probably a subjective test. Where, some people say that not much progress has been made. Obviously, the funding that you talked about is many different stages, and they're all complex stages, and let's hope are successful. And nothing's going to happen until next year anyway. So just a point there that I personally feel that the progress is. I know it's COVID-19, but progress has been slow. The time is ticking, and let's hope that we can get something positive out of this soon. And there's still a lot of uncertainties. The other point that I really wanted to make, and the reason why I wanted to speak, is I think I've spoken to Helen already regarding the makeup of the board. And my understanding was that there would be a councillor from the central Dudley area that would be able to attend or be part of this board. Now, that's not reflected there. Is that, can we amend that, Helen? Because my understanding is that you did check that out and you were able to get the councillor on board.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. The list that I just read out is the list that reflects the attendees that are required by government to constitute a Towns Board. It is, as you know, Councillor Ahmed, from our conversations, possible for it to be slightly wider than that if the board and the local area decides that's what it wishes to see. I have raised your request with the board to have a local board member. The action from the last board was that in the first instance I write to the 3 board members and update them, and that has happened, and I'm happy to take back the request to the next board that that's happened and that there's a wish to see local representation. Now, whether that's a cabinet member or a local board member, happy to be advised and take that forward, but I am advised from our local government contacts that there are boards that do have local board members, and that is permissible and totally feasible.
David, I'm not sure whether whether from Patrick there can be a guidance here. It's important that is a local political influence is on this particular board to make sure that they understand the area better, and they should be on there without, whether the board says yes or no. We should be having some political influence there.
I tend to agree with you there, and I know Patrick is there waiting to come in. Patrick?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree. Political influence, yes. Political dithering, no. And that's not what we will have. We will have political influence at all levels on the Towns Fund. I can't agree with you at all about the fact that this is taking a long time. If you look at other schemes up and down the country, we're actually leading the way, and I think we're ahead of the game. If you look at what's being proposed now in that particular part of the town, it is absolutely breathtaking. And as Helen's mentioned, it's that last piece in the jigsaw. And on that area, you will have very light rail. You'll have the Innovation Centre for very light rail. You'll have the Institute of Technology. You'll have the Autonomous Vehicle Centre. And now we'll have what really is the last piece of the jigsaw. You'll have a centre of excellence for science and life sciences and for medical students. And we will be a university town, and you can't underestimate the value of the student pound, and particularly when you look at developments like Portersfield, where student accommodation will play a huge part in that. So the student pound is important, and we're laying the foundations for that now for the future. But I can't agree that we're taking our time on it. We've demolished Cavendish House rather quickly. We've got the funding for VLR, which I remember at the last cabinet meeting, David said it was a long time ago. It was only July, and we were being told that our negotiating skills were either brilliant or not. I would say that we've done an absolutely fantastic job getting that commitment from the generic funding. We were the only Black Country authority to have a scheme with that much investment. A lot of schemes of the Black Country fell by the wayside. Ours didn't. It stood up to scrutiny. It stood up to the tests and the merits right across the West Midlands. And Dudley got more, once got more than its fair share. So I don't think we've dragged our feet here. I think we're leading the way. And of course, accept your point that ward members can be involved on the Towns Board. That sort of influence is important, but not dithering, not delay. Has to be full speed ahead with these region projects. Thank you, Chair.
David, can I come back?
Yes, Kirshen, certainly.
David, I mean, we're just talking about the Driverless Vehicle Consortium report, not the other projects. I'm very well aware about the other regeneration programs, because don't forget, these have been set out and these have been running for many years. And I've been part of those programs. And when I set off the questions about this report, I did say that we're supporting all the regeneration programs, but the fact that this particular one, I think that seems to be a bit of a slow progress, and there's a lot of uncertainties, and let's hope that we get what we're looking for. And of course, this is going to be the last part of the jigsaw. If and when we get it, it'll be brilliant and it's welcomed.
We will certainly be getting it. This cabinet has made their mind up, and that's the way forward we shall go. I sat in on a webinar this afternoon, very influential people there, and we were talking about regeneration and in particular driverless vehicles. The committee that were doing it was saying that in 2025 they reckon that the town centres will only have driverless vehicles and no other cars will come in, which will be very interesting. It's something that I never even thought about. But I'm frightened to death to sit in a driverless vehicle, even if it's stationary. But we'll see how it goes. Any other questions?
And the leader wants to come in.
Yeah, thank you, David. Just on the driving, I'm scared stiff to be in a car that you're driving, never mind driverless. But that's another question. That's another point. The point Councillor Ahmed raises about the Autonomous Vehicle Centre, actually with it linking up and being part of the Institute of Technology, that is rapidly speeding up that particular project. So maybe you haven't read all the detail, but if you get the detail from Helen and Paul, these proposals actually speed up the autonomous vehicle part of the bottom of Castle Hill projects. By linking in with the Institute, we speed it up quite a lot, quite rapidly, Kirshen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. So if there's no other questions, we shall note the contents of that. Congratulate the officers and Ian, who have been working so hard on this matter. And we'll see it going forward in the next few months, I'm certain. Thank you very much indeed for that. Moving on, having noted that report, we'll move on to agenda item 12, which is review of the licensing policy. Now, this is interesting. Who's going to do that? Gary V, are you there, Gary, or is that going to be?
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair. I'm happy to take this report. The report itself seeks approval from Cabinet for an update of the Council's licensing policy following consultation with relevant authorities and also interested parties. It's very much a tidy up exercise of the existing policy, updating references to various bodies that have either been renamed or ceased to exist, in addition to some amendments relating to regulated entertainment, and also removal of references to unitary authority plans which don't currently exist anymore. As a local authority and under the requirements of the Licensing Act 2003, we are required to undertake and publish a review of our licensing policy every 5 years. Item 4 of the report details down the previous periods when we've undertaken a review of the policy. In addition, through new legislation, we're also required to undertake a review of what's known as a cumulative impact policy, which is actually reviewed every 3 years and was last reviewed in 2019 and is due to be reviewed in 2022. With regards to the licensing policy, consultation exercise was conducted from the 14th of May 2020 with letters sent out to statutory consultees. The period for consultation was extended to the 3rd of July in recognition of the COVID-19 crisis. There's also a comprehensive list of consultees attached to the licensing policy. The draft revision to the licensing policy was considered and approved by the Licensing and Safety Committee on the 2nd of September of this year. The policy itself is available on the committee management information system, in addition to correspondence associated with the consultation. It's also detailed down on the same system. As such, Chair, it's recommended that Cabinet approve the licensing committee, which will then go through to full council for their approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Anybody with any questions on that at all?
There are no indications.
Or saving yourself for full council. No.
Thank you, Chair.
I shall look forward to that. Shall we adopt that report and note the contents? Thank you very much indeed, Gary. Agenda item 13 then. Any issues arising from the scrutiny committees?
There are no issues to report.
14, consider any questions from members to the leader where two clear days notice has been given.
None, Chair.
None at all. Okay, folks. Thank you all very much for attending. I would like to thank our officers throughout the council for their hard work that they've been doing during this period of COVID, and it hasn't finished yet, as we well know. We might end up getting even harder and further locked down. So good luck, everybody. Thank you, officers. Thank you all the members of the cabinet and opposition for attending, and please stay safe, folks. Good night.
You too. Good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.